Hello, 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 hello. Welcome everyone to the show. I appreciate you guys. There's a bunch of people already up in the building. I really appreciate that. Make sure you hit the like button and let's make it do what it do. I got my special guest today. Once again, Auntie Anita. What is going on?
I'm good. I'm good. Hello. Do I want to click that comments? I don't know if I want to. All right, I'm gonna stay out the comments today. I'm gonna ask the moderators though, you know, do your job. But I'm gonna stay out the comments today, but I'm doing great. I'm excited about this episode. We are going to do some critical thought on a topic that kind of is a hot button topic. And so all I ask is that everyone bring an open mind, bring mutual respect, right? Show up with your thoughts and your critically thought out, comments and your opinions, but be respectful. That's all I ask. So it's going to be a good show.
The mods usually do a pretty good job, and I will
Good.
ask them to keep an eye on that because we are going to be busy
Yeah.
doing what we're doing here. We got a whole presentation for you.
Yep.
We got a whole presentation for you. Let me say hello to some people, and then we'll get into it. Hello, Miss Independent. My girl Les. Garrett, what's going on? Garrett, what's going on? Let's do this. Melissa Lott, hello to you. Minister Misty, evening and blessings, everyone. Miss Independent. There's a few other people. If you want to be acknowledged, make sure you say hello.
Hmm.
Also, let us know where you're checking in from. And make sure you hit the like button on your way in. We are going to be a little bit busy doing some stuff. So if we can't get to all the comments, you know how I like to do. I like to make sure that the chat is involved in the conversation. But if we can't
Good.
get to it, just know that we are a little bit busy. Before we jump into anything here, let me put this on the screen here. One of our own completed a book, and I want you guys to go over there and give her some love. So this is where is it at here?
Okay.
There it is.
Awesome.
Yoli, Yolanda Campbell
Hmm.
completed a book, Maya Blossom and the Popsicle Stand and Other Stories. So
All
go over
right.
there, give her some love, give her some support. If you got kids or grandkids or
Mhm.
aunties, excuse me, nieces, nephews, whatever, go over there and you can get it on. Looks like you can get it on Kindle. I don't know if is that I don't know if that's the only place that it can be purchased, but go over there, give her some love, and for ages 10 to 16. So go over there and give her some love. Yes, yes,
Cool. All right.
yeah. All right, all right. So congratulations to you, Yoli, and I'll try to remember to put this up at the end. But please go over there and give her some support. All right, we'll remove this here. All right.
Hmm.
Let me see. Some more people are in the building. Let's see. Let's see who else is here. I for, I forgot the guest names, but thanks for being here, Anita St. Rune Billy Babyish. Hello from
Okay.
Ohio. Miles is in the building. It's one mod right there. Make sure we keep the chat clean and clear, please, for us.
Mhm.
Nikki Ford. Hello from Hampton, VA. Okay, okay. Lamar's up in the building. What's good? What's going
Right.
on? Miss Independent. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, Dr. Ellen Anita. Greetings from Spain. Okay,
Woo.
okay.
All
Wow,
right.
okay.
Baby
You
Queen
living
from
there? You on
Spain.
vacation? What's good with that?
Right.
Let's see. Blue Sapphires in the building. Thank you so much. Glorious Love.
Hmm.
Maggie Vada. Mags. Okay, okay.
Okay.
A bunch of
All
people in the
right.
building. Thank you guys so much. There may be some people who don't know who you is. Well, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get into it, if you will.
So I run the platform Better Love Movement here on YouTube and over on Instagram. What started out as a platform to help women, especially women between the ages of 25 and 45. My platform started out as a femininity channel and helping women to become their best feminine self. That was my goal as I was teaching my own daughter some of these principles, but I had a couple of reels go viral. I, at one point in time, had more men on my platform than I did women. So I started creating content for both. So that's kind of where I've landed today. I create healthy masculinity and healthy femininity content. I talk quite a bit about polarity and the importance of having good polarity in our romantic relationships. But that's a little bit about me. I do have a channel. It's called Better Love Movement. And please check it out. Go over there. Check out my videos. Consider becoming a member of the channel or subscribing to the channel.
Very good, very good. So the presentation that we have for you tonight, there was a video. I can't remember if you put it up or I put it up or I came across. We sent so much
Yeah.
stuff, so I can't remember how we got it. But I said, listen, we got to talk about this,
Yep.
and so you put together this presentation for tonight. So I'm gonna let you have it. Give us, tell me what to play first, and we'll get to it.
Okay. So tonight we are going to discuss the history of feminism. And we're going to talk about the pros and the cons. Now, what's interesting about this is whenever something new gets introduced to the culture, you have people that are for it, you have people that are against it. But people like me who land somewhere in the middle, who are emotionally and intellectually mature, we understand that everything has pros and cons. So never has something been introduced in the culture and it's been all bad or it's been all good. Okay. Even if something gets introduced and there's one good thing about it, but there's 10 bad things about it, usually there is some form of a pro and there's some form of a con. So, depending on who I talk to about this subject, some people say, no, feminism's great. It's all good. I can't believe you would say there's anything bad about it. And then you have a lot of people, especially today, that believe that feminism is destroying the nuclear family. Feminism is destroying healthy relationships. So we're going to talk about both because there is some truth in both of those statements. There are some pros and there are definitely some cons. Now, you all know which side of the fence that I land on, and that is fourth wave feminism. Under that title, feminism is not something that I personally support. I have always supported gender equality. I make that very clear in all of the content I create and whenever I'm on someone's panel. I support gender equality. What does that mean? That is basically saying that regardless of a person's gender, they will all have the same political rights, social rights, economic equality, like they will all have access to the same things. That I 100% agree with. But as we start talking about the different waves of feminism, we're going to see how what started out as, oh, women want the right to vote, women want the right to own land. Now, here we are many years later, and it is not about equality. To some degree, it is about superiority. It is sending a message that women are better, that women are smarter, that women are the most educated, that women make, especially Black women, that oh, they make the most money, they're the most educated. Like now it's about trumping the other gender and saying, yeah, it's almost like get back. That's what I like to call it. It's like, okay, well now we got to get some get back. Here's another thing for you to know. And I stand by this. And a lot of people say, well, how do you know that? You haven't been alive 200 years. But this is what I honestly believe. This is what intuitively I believe. I don't believe men have been sitting around for hundreds of years plotting on women's downfall. If anything, I think men just didn't consider women at all. That's not oppression. Okay. Now, what happened to African Americans? That's oppression. That's oppression. These people actively and willingly and maliciously did horrible things to Black people. I don't think that's the case with women. I think men were not thinking about women at all. I do not believe that women suffered oppression. So let me make that first bold statement. I'm sure some folks are going to have thoughts and opinions about that. I don't think that was the case. I don't think men gathered in their men only spaces and they sat around talking about women. They sat around talking about how to keep women out of the workforce and how to keep women from voting and how to keep women from owning land or any of that. I don't. I think men were doing what men do. They were focused on their careers and their work and all the things, government and all the things, and they just weren't thinking about women. But women call that oppression. It is not. It is not. So when they say feminism started from the oppression of women, like, I say foul. That's not what happened. Now let's go to the first wave of feminism. You have Elizabeth Cady Stanton, you have Susan B. Anthony, and you all know her because she's on the coin, right? And so first wave of feminism tells us that okay, we want the right to vote. That's called suffrage. So these first suffragists, right? They wanted the right to vote. And so the Seneca Falls Convention, this was back in 1848. This is what started the championship for the right to vote for women. Now, here's something that's interesting for you to know. Way back then, there were a whole bunch of people who couldn't vote, not just women. Black people couldn't vote, man or woman. And there were some white men who couldn't vote. There were some immigrants who couldn't vote. So it wasn't just women. There was a whole lot of people that couldn't vote. But yet, women think they were oppressed. So, no, that's not how that went. Because remember, men weren't sitting around thinking about how to hold women down. That wasn't happening. They had very specific ways of doing things. You had to be a landowner, right? I even believe that in some states you had to be married. You had to be a married man to vote. So if you're a single man, if you don't own no land, you ain't voting. Okay? But women have had this belief forever that men have oppressed them. That's not what happened. Okay, so property rights, the right to vote, and educational opportunities for women. That was the first wave. Okay? Then we come to the second wave. That's in the 1960s. So the first wave is from the late 19th century to the early 20th century. Then we have the second wave of feminism. That's in the 1960s to the 1980s. So it's building. It's building on that first wave. So guess what, y'all? Anybody know in the comments when the birth control pill was approved by the FDA? We teach in class tonight. Anybody? Okay, anybody? Okay, I'm gonna tell you. 1960. That started the second wave of feminism. So now, two gentlemen, two men by the name of Gregory Pincus and John Rock invented hormonal birth control. Who do you think hormonal birth control benefited the most? Let's really think about this. Let's critically think. Who benefited from hormonal birth control the most? She said 1960, Miss Independent. Great. Garrett said all feminism is terrible. There are no benefits. Sweetheart, you got to keep your mind open. Okay? You got to have an open mind for this conversation. You can't be closed minded. It benefits men. Hormonal birth control benefits men the most. Guess what else benefits men the most? Abortion. So you didn't see that coming. That's a pro for a man. Okay? So if my wife is on hormonal birth control or my woman is on hormonal birth control that has a 99% effective rate. All right, we having some fun. We doing what we do, and I don't have to worry about a baby being one of the consequences. Same with abortion, right? When abortion came on the scene and we doing what we do, we having fun, and oops, if something were to happen, well, we're going to take care of it. It benefits men. And yet it has been sold as a benefit to women. Hormonal birth control jacks your body all up. Hormonal birth control hijacks your hormone system. You don't even like the same men when you're on birth control as when you're off birth control. but yet it's being sold as, the second coming for a woman, that it is so great and it is offer so much freedom. But the truth is, that's a benefit for men. Same with abortion. The person who's going to physically go through the abortion is the woman. The person who's going to have the mental health repercussions and the after that abortion is over is women. So that, in my humble opinion, is one of the first cons of feminism, is selling to women that these things are a part of their freedom. It's a part of their liberation. It's good for them. It isn't. It isn't. It actually benefits men. Okay, so that's the second wave of feminism. We have birth control coming on the scene. We're changing laws around domestic violence, workplace discrimination, and we're beginning to challenge traditional gender roles. Okay, so that's 1960s to 1980s. Notable figures include Betty Friedan. Her book, The Feminine Mystique. This was required reading back then for the college campuses for women who claim to be feminist. All right. Um, Simone de Beauvoir, she wrote a book called The Second Sex. She explored the social construct of femininity. So these women believed that femininity was a social construct, that we were taught how to be female or how to be feminine. So in other words, when you hear people say things like, well, we give female children dolls and we give boys trucks. That's how we teach men to be masculine and women to be feminine. No, no, no. It is innate. It is a part of our nature. It's a part of our God-given nature to want to nurture something. Are there young girls who love to play with trucks? Sure. Are there boys who may want a doll baby? Sure. But they are in the minority. They're outliers. And there have been many studies done on this, that when you just put a 2-year-old child in a room full of toys, all kinds of toys, the female children gravitate toward a certain type of toy, the male children gravitate toward a certain type of toy. It is innate in us. But yet, these two women want us to believe that these things are social constructs. There's something that's put on us, right? By the culture, by society. But I digress. The third wave of feminism. This is the 1990s to the early 2010s. This wave emerged from the successes and limitations of the second wave. So it focused on issues of diversity. So now we're seeing, this is what's interesting about the third wave. We're starting to see women of color. So we're talking about diversity, intersectionality, individual empowerment. This is when the slut walk, sexual orientation, social classes. Now we have challenging stereotypes. We have LGBTQIA. We're addressing sexual harassment. The Me Too movement happened in the third wave. Okay, so
What year?
now
What years was that? What year? What years
that
was
was
that?
the 1990s to the 2010s. Okay, so if you remember the Me Too movement. So now women are fighting back. They're not taking it no more. But we're also seeing more women of color. We're seeing the LGBTQIA community getting involved. We're seeing, social class, like we're talking about some of these different issues. That's the third wave. Now we are in the fourth wave. So the early 2010s until the present. And now we have social media, we have digital platforms. We're using all of that to now organize feminism, mobilize and amplify feminist voices. Okay, so we're still talking about sexual harassment, we're talking about sexual violence, we're talking about social and political equality, we're challenging the patriarchy. Okay, and let me give you a definition for patriarchy. It's a noun. It's a system of society or government which is the father or the eldest male is the head of the family, and descent is traced through the male line. That is the definition of patriarchy. which is the father. Okay. And matriarchy is the mother. Okay. But women are tying all these things to patriarchy when in fact, our country was founded. That's why they say the founding fathers. That's where patriarchy came from, right? That men are governing the country and governing the government and all parts of it. And they are heads of household. Back then, the men only voted because there was one vote per household. Okay. And so a lot of people think we should return to that. I'd be curious to know if anybody agrees with that. But a lot of people think we should return to one household vote. That,
There's a big push for that. There's a
yep.
big push for that. Yeah.
So I'd love your thoughts and opinions about that. Um, we're also promoting body positivity and inclusivity. We've heard a lot over the last 10 or 20 years about fat shaming, fat phobia, and what is beauty. And Black people have been talking forever about European standard of beauty, but now we done gone beyond that, right? It's not even about that anymore. It's about fat is beautiful. It's about all kinds of things that we normally wouldn't see as beautiful. We should see that as beautiful. It wants to change the narrative about what is socially acceptable, what is beautiful, da 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 da. So we're in the fourth wave now. Okay. All right. Those are the four waves of feminism. Anybody have questions? Let's see. Garrett says one vote per household. Husband is responsible for the vote. One household vote seems like it would leave out people.
I have a question.
Hmm.
What you just read off about the waves thus far. Did you get to you did the fourth one, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the waves just thus far, is this pretty much acknowledged and accepted?
Yep.
Um
Yeah.
okay. All
This
right.
is well known. Everybody knows about these waves. Very well known. And even the feminists agree. Like everything that I've discussed, they're like, yes, that's true. Um,
What do you think is the push has been the push from one thing to the next? One wave, okay, we got this. Second wave, we got that. Third wave, we got this. Fourth wave, I mean, is there a fifth wave coming? What would that look like, and
it could
why
be.
they keep pushing for more? Yeah.
It could be in 20 years we could have a fifth wave. I think women are going to break before that happens because we're going to talk about what I believe are some of the pros of feminism because at the heart of it is gender equality, right? That everybody, regardless of gender, should have the same opportunities, should have the same rights. That's what's at the heart of it, right? So, yes, everyone, regardless of color, regardless of race, regardless of religion and ethnicity, can vote, can participate in our United States of America government system, right? Everybody can have a credit card, everybody can own a home, everybody can buy land, right? That's that's not a bad thing. So that's why I'm saying keep your mind open. Okay? It is not a bad thing that a widow. So maybe I was married and my husband died and I have three children and his property can be passed down to me. Now I'm the owner of said property. That's not a bad thing. I now own property. I own land and I become the vote for my household. That's not a bad thing because that is what gender equality is. It says that regardless of gender, and we can go as far as, Black people having to vote now, right? We can go so far as Black people being free, not being owned by someone else, Black people being able to own property and own a home and have credit, own a business. That's not a bad thing, right? I'm right there. I always tell feminist women, I'm here. We're here together. But as the waves continued, that's when, in my humble opinion, now we're on a witch hunt. We're on a witch hunt for some get back. We're sitting around and we're thinking that men are oppressing women. That's not what happened. Men weren't thinking about women. That's all that happened. They did not factor women into any parts of the founding of our nation. Okay, you're my wife, you stitch the flags, you work and do this, like that's it. That's all in their mind. That's all they thought.
Well,
And
okay. Well, let me try to push back and just. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but in their refusal to think about women, would they not count that as oppression if they're not thinking about
no,
the slaves? Slaves don't vote. Let's just do what we're doing. Uh, and the natives, the not the
right.
poor whites who didn't own land. If they're not thinking about them, would they not consider that some type of oppression?
Women do, women do. But let me give you the dictionary definition of oppression:
Mhm.
prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. So because I'm not thinking about you, that doesn't fit that definition. I'm just not thinking about you. You're living in my household. I'm taking care of you. I'm feeding you. I'm clothing you. I'm taking care of any children we have. That's not what was it? Let me go back. That's not prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. Now we know as black people, we have experienced prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment and control. That's why I specifically talk about the slave trade. That's why I specifically talk about Jim Crow. That's why I specifically talk about everything everything that happened to us. That is the definition of oppression. But men just not considering you, that's not oppression, baby. It's not. Okay? They're just not considering you. And how about this? Let's go here. I believe women got better men. They got better men back then. Men who were willing to say, "Yeah, don't worry about working. Don't pay any bills. Just take care of things at home. Whatever it is you need, I'm going to provide. I'm going to provide physical protection. I'm going to, vote for our family and make sure our interests, are seen in the government." And I believe women got better treatment by men than what we have now. But we're free. So again, I'm
And
gonna move
and
on.
in the third. Oh, before you do, one last question.
Mm.
The third wave you talk about black folks joining the movement here.
Yep.
Would that be considered womanism, or did they jump on the feminism train? Because some have made the distinction between womanism and feminism.
Right. It could be. I mean, there's lots of reasons for that. So we have the LGBTQIA. We had people of color in that. Um, it could be a whole lot of reasons, but the social class thing, I think that fed into it. Um, Sexual harassment, the stereotypes, I think all of that fed into it.
BGS and more says feminism is the extension of the social contract from France. It gives them rights and responsibilities of the common man. They have the rights, but not the responsibilities. And that is, I think that is one of the major problems that men have with this with this current wave, and probably all waves of feminism, is that in particular, when you look at voting, men have to get conscripted to go to war. Women don't. And that's a big problem that a lot of people have.
I agree. I agree. And that's why I'm going to challenge it by saying it's not as equal. It's not as equal as it pretends to be, right? It isn't equal because like you said, women would be required to register for the draft. I agree with that. I do not disagree. I think women, if they're going to be equal, especially out here in the workforce and in the world, then it needs to be the same across the board, right? That they should have to register for the draft and all of the other responsibilities that come along with um, the rights. I agree with that. But just know that guess but ooh, thank you, Holy Spirit. Guess why that isn't? Guess why that is not equal? Good old patriarchy. Good old patriarchy. The men in our country they could not ever see themselves doing that. And this is why I tell women, men are they're decent by nature, right? They are becoming less decent, but men by nature are protective. Men by nature want to protect women. They want to protect children. They want to provide. That is their nature. It's patriarchy. Patriarchy is the reason why women are not required to register for the draft, because men, the father, they cannot see their daughters being drafted in a war. No, 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 that's going too far. We're going too far. It's patriarchy that feminists hate so much, that is protecting them.
Okay.
So that's it. Okay, so I deleted my comment due to a type. Okay, America will win zero wars with women being drafted. Agreed. Agreed. But they still, the founding fathers would roll over in their grave at the thought of women being drafted. It's patriarchy. And they don't even realize it. That's what's protecting them from true equality, right? So that's why we have chivalry. Again, I believe men are decent by nature, and they want to open the door. They see the woman as the weaker vessel. They understand that there are certain things that men are designed to do and women are designed to do. Women are pushing this back. Women are pushing this away, and now they feel away now that it's gone. Well, how come people don't know? And why don't these men want to pay for dates? And why don't they open the doors? Well, you didn't want that. You wanted to be equal. And remember, you can be equal or you can be special. You cannot do both. Me, I want to be special.
You
I
can't be
love the
equally special.
Yeah, I love the double standard in some regard. I really do. So that's what women have cut their nose off in spite of their face. They really have. And so now those chickens are coming home to roost, and men are like, "Oh, you said don't mess with you. You said don't approach you. You said don't talk to you." Okay. They've actually listened. They actually listened to what women said, and now women are upset about that. And we know why that is, because women will say one thing but do another. They will say they want one thing but will choose another. So,
Maggie has been disagreeing quite a bit, saying you're wrong about some stuff. If you stay till the end, Maggie, I will drop the link and allow you to come up if you'd like to talk. But
please, yeah.
we got some videos and stuff, so we'd love to hear your opinion.
Yep.
Okay, we want to continue with this presentation. What else do you have for us?
Okay. So some of the positives of feminism, and then we'll get to some of our videos. The voting rights, right? Like I said, everyone can vote, regardless of color, regardless of religion, regardless of gender. Everyone can vote. All right. So that has secured the right for women to vote. Workplace protections. So there are laws now against gender discrimination. At one point, in the second wave of feminism, a woman could be fired if she got pregnant from her job. She could be fired from her job if she was pregnant. So that was discriminatory. That if a woman, was working a job and then she came up pregnant, that the employer could fire her because of said condition. So we have certain gender discriminations that we don't have gender discrimination anymore. Sexual harassment, we've had those laws put in place, and then we have women who have been encouraged to run for political office, participate in decision making roles. We see women now in high ranking positions in businesses, in corporate America, in government, and so on. Women have educational access. So a woman can get a degree to the highest nth, right? Um, they're trying to encourage women to go into fields like STEM, law, medicine, but we do know that by nature, women tend to lean towards fields that are more communicative, that are more caring, like nursing, being a secretary, going into journalism, things of that nature. Women really love social work, being a counselor, all the things, teaching, right? Those are both of my professions, teaching and being a counselor. Um, so we have that. Women have educational access. Women have economic independence now, and we talk quite a bit about this. But a woman can have a bank account, have a credit card. Um, she can go out and get a job and keep all of the money, whereas in first wave feminism, if a woman did have a job, the money went to her husband. So now a woman can go out and work and make money and keep the money. Um, Advocacy against domestic violence, marital rape. So marital rape was officially abolished because there was a point in time where a husband could not be accused of raping his wife. So that wasn't a thing. So if the wife went and said, "Yeah, my husband raped me," they would, that's not a thing. That's not a law. So now there are protections against that, sexual assault. There are legal protections against that. And of course, the reproductive health, consent, bodily autonomy, and then broader benefits for the society. So gender equality improves the national economic growth, which is the number one reason for it. And a lot of people, they really do believe it was about female oppression. It wasn't. It was about national economic growth. Public health and innovation, workplaces and diversity often perform better due to varied perspectives and problem solving styles. So, those are some of the positive things that have come out of the feminist movement. All right. Any questions, comments?
So that idea about economic improvement, is that well known and documented too? I've heard a lot of people say that. I've
Yes.
never. This, so there were corporations and companies sitting in smoke filled rooms doing the
Yeah. Yeah.
doing the
Let's
criminal.
get,
Let's get more
let's
in the
double the
workplace.
workforce. Yes. Now
Okay.
that did happen. Let's double the workforce. Let's get twice as many taxes per household. Yes, that's exactly what happened. And then the more that that happened, that's what caused the prices of everything to rise. And now we live in a system where very few people have a single income family home. You need two incomes to have a somewhat normal life in America. But unfortunately, I mean, there were a whole lot of families who were single income families. That was the norm. And here we are, all these years later, double income families is the norm. So, yep, they knew what they were doing. We need to generate more income. We need to generate more taxes. Right. We need to generate money for the country. I mean, that's good old capitalism.
Okay.
All right. Two incomes are needed in order to have a chance. Okay. No one should be abused, man or woman. Agreed. Okay. But she said something about there should be laws for men. Domestic violence protections were only for women for a long time, not men. Oh, and that's wrong also. Okay. I thought I saw something to that effect. Yeah. Okay. All right. I want you to show some of the clips if you can, even if it's 10 or 15 seconds, because we're going back and forth about, we don't want to get demonetized.
All right. So the first one is from Candace Owens, Jubilee. Uh, Cancel here. Uh, when she was on that round table being surrounded there.
Right.
Last time I played that, it got demonetized. So y'all hit the cash app there.
Right.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Cancel. Share screen. Video file. What's going on here? Share
Uh-oh.
screen.
See if it'll let you.
All right. Hold on. Video file.
And Candace.
All right. So right there, we have someone saying that our hormones, that our biology doesn't have anything to do with how we move and operate. And yet, most of us here this evening If you are a mature adult, you recognize that there are differences between men and women. And those differences are not just physical, those differences are in how we think, those differences are in our feelings versus our logic and rationale. Those differences, I mean, there are tons and tons of differences. Our hormones, all of these things do, in fact, say, yes, we are equal in value and we are gravely different in nature. But again, the feminist movement wants you to believe that women are men and men are women, that we're interchangeable. And the fact that they want to, instead of saying pregnant woman, they want to say pregnant people is asinine when the only person that can have a biological baby is a biological woman. Okay? So yeah, we that's where we are. It's like Mark Manson said, you can be so smart, you can be so intellectual that you're stupid. Like the smarter you get, the dumber you get because you are willing to put forth notions like this and then die on that hill. You're willing to just, yep, that's what it is, and you can't tell us what a woman is. You can't even tell us what a woman is. So yeah. All right. Any questions? Birth rate. There's some talk about birth rate. Yes, the birth rate is in fact plummeting.
Do you think that that's due to the lack of family values, lack of partnering up, women putting off having babies
Yep.
until they're in their 30s and 40s?
Yep. Or not
And
having kids at all. Yeah. Not having children at all.
And what are your thoughts about feminism and independence? How about corrective and preventative actions like mandatory DNA testing at birth in the Black community in particular?
First, it don't have to be in the Black community. Okay. It can be in all the communities, right? It doesn't, that's not something that just affects Black people. That's something that if you want to, and again, to me, because men are the ones most worried about that, I think they should advocate for it. I'm not saying that I would vote against it, but I want to see men advocate for that. I do. I want to see men, just like men are advocating for the rights to see their children and 50-50 custody and all of that. Yeah, that's an issue that I want to see men fight for.
But this is
Okay?
the beat. This is the beating down that we have received. And this is probably a little bit of the. You said the retribution is coming. Oh, you guys have had it so long. Sit down, be quiet, go over there in the corner. You're toxic, and we got to fight against that, according to you.
Yep.
That I agree with. That I
Yep.
agree with.
Yeah. So what? I need you to rise up. I need there to be more male, led organizations or, y'all need to have your own movement, right? Have your own movement. You claim MGTOW is a movement. Okay. Why can't you have a movement that says, hey, we need to have mandatory DNA tests? And again, you would be surprised at the women that would support it. Yes, there'll be a percentage of women that won't, but there will be women that will. The women voted Trump in. So there
Mm.
must be some, women out here that have some amount of conservative value. So yeah, you'd be surprised at how many women would vote yes for that.
Mm.
Okay, I know I would, because like I said, I know who I let between my legs. I know who gets me pregnant. And if that was a law and I went to the hospital and gave birth to a baby, okay, what's the big deal? I know who the father is.
So let's go back to that for a second there, right? So it's been my and listen, this is all brand new to me. I'm kind of spitballing. Trying to thinking about this as I go along. I have not done a lot of research. I'm still trying to catch up on all this. So in that clip that we just played, the woman was talking about that a lot of societies were egalitarian. There were a few that were matriarchal for a millennia, for thousands of years. Um, are because women have been collective thinkers and they've been collective thinkers, right? So the child that was born belonged to the tribe. Right? If you got 150 people, but so the child belonged to the tribe, so it really didn't matter.
Right.
Yes, there were certain marriages, but it really didn't matter because it belonged to everyone. right? We're all going to
Mhm.
go up and go hunt. We're all going to go
Yep.
out here and go fishing. We're all going to
Yep.
protect the tribe. But what really now what is driving people nuts is you're making me as a man pay for something, right? Now we're not tribal anymore. We're
Right.
more atomized,
Yep.
this nuclear family. So that's the issue, is it's the
Right.
nuclear family. And if the child's not mine, well, I still have to pay if I just wrote my name down, or even if I didn't write my name down,
Yep.
or even if I got married or had a birth, that's really the issue that is driving men nuts.
Yep. And here's what men can do today. Would you like to know? Here's what you can do today, man. If you are not married to the woman who is having your child, you cannot sign the birth certificate until a DNA test is had. You can do that even if you're married. Now, this is what I'm going to tell you about the law in various states, and I'm just giving y'all this. I'm not an attorney. This is what I know about the state of Virginia that I live in. So, there are several states that, regardless of the DNA test or not, if you're legally
Mm,
married to a woman, the child is yours.
right, 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 right.
But for those of you who are having all these kids and you ain't married to these women, that's the answer. Stop signing the birth certificate, dummy. Get a DNA test and don't sign the birth certificate until you do.
But right, and listen, I agree with you. Don't sign it. But this is why guys are backing out of marriage, because even if it's not mine, I
Yep.
still have to pay. So why risk going through these hoops? And I got to spend. When I was going through my first divorce, I was in court, right? So you go there, right? And so I had to sit down, wait for the next. There was a guy there. There was a guy there who took the DNA test.
Hmm.
He was standing up before me, took the DNA test. It came back negative. It came back that he wasn't the father, right? I'm in court listening to this. Now, again, think about this. I'm in court listening to this as they're going through a divorce. I'm like, oh my God, right? So, so they take the test, and the other attorney, the woman's attorney, says, well, we don't know, but if that's true or not. So we're gonna have them take another DNA test.
Oh,
Now
okay.
this is 20 years. It was How much was the DNA test then? Like $1,000
Yeah, it was a
at that
lot.
time.
Yep.
So they're gonna make this man had taken his own DNA test, brought it as evidence, and the attorney said that, and the judge said, yeah, you're right.
Yep.
We're gonna make you take an official DNA test. I gotta come up with another $1,000, come back to court, pay my attorney again. So that's why guys are saying, forget all of that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but
Somebody asked about my cup here. This is my
okay.
Captain America cup. I
Okay.
am I'm trying to get away from the plastics. I was watching the video the other day about all the plastics that
Oh
are in the bodies
yeah.
and stuff. So
Yep.
I'm switching to the glass. So
Okay,
that's why
good.
that's where it's at. So getting
Okay.
rid of the plastics.
Okay, the nameless protagonist. Many states, if you are married, say that if you are legally married, you are presumed the father. Yep. Usually it can be contested, but you generally have 3 years after birth or 1 year after suspicion. That's good information because I know that's the case here in Virginia. That if your wife delivers a baby, you're automatically the father. And if you find out by DNA that you're not, okay, well, you're going to be paying. So that sucks, right? That sucks. That definitely sucks. I'm not disagreeing with y'all. Like I said, I would support it, but I think that's something that men need to champion. They need to champion that, okay? And come together collectively and champion that, changing that. I do. But like I said, you'd be surprised at the women that would support it. They would support it. That's all.
Okay.
But yes, someone else had mentioned about the low birth rate because of how expensive everything is. People can't afford children. I actually agree with that. I believe that pets and children are now a luxury item. And I have been saying
Pets?
that. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Pets and children. The average person cannot afford to have a pet. The average person now can barely afford to have children, much less multiple children. Think about it. Think about the cost. So I got a dog downstairs, Tony, who is 17 years old. That's like I'm gonna see him into adulthood for real, for real. He'll be 18 next year. So think about that. Can you afford the vet bills? Can you afford the food? Can you afford the dog toys and the crate and all of the things that are necessary to properly care for a pet? A lot of people can't. And yet, I was just outside 2 days ago and saw a homeless dude with a dog. And I was like, sir, this is the last expense that you need. Why do you have a dog and you don't have a place to live? Why do you have a dog and you're out here begging for food? So, yes, it's that bad. It's that bad. Okay, got a vasectomy 20 years ago. I never tell my lady just in case. Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing. I have 3 male friends. They've all had vasectomies. I have nothing but respect for these men because that is control. That is the ultimate control, which is controlling you. Control what comes out of your body. That way you know the baby ain't yours. See? But how many men out here refuse to get a vasectomy? They refuse to handle their business and they have child after child after child. So, like I said, I want to see men take on that real responsibility. That's all. Okay, but folks making less than 30K a year seem to be having kids just fine. I mean, they're not taking care of the kids well. I'm just being honest. Like, and y'all know that. Those kids are not being they're not being taken care of in the best care that they could be. So,
I think um, there should be more birth control options for men, and I wish more men would get a vasectomy. I think there's a pill out that just
agreed.
came out. I think there's
Agreed.
a pill that just came out helping men with that. Some kind of birth control pill. I haven't looked into it, but I saw another YouTuber discussing it. So maybe on the way.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree
Passport
with that.
OG. Passport OG. Welcome, welcome, brother. I'm a big fan. I better to keep my equipment and go elsewhere. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm.
Did you have
Mhm.
another video you want to play, or would you want to go for that?
Let's talk about some of the negatives and then we're going to play some videos, okay?
Okay,
Cuz
okay.
cuz y'all want that. That's what y'all want. Y'all want to hear the negatives, okay? Okay. So the
It's,
first negative is the perceived shift from equality to superiority. And this is where a lot of men and some women are aligning that, hey, it's not even about being equal anymore. It's about women being superior. It's about women being put above men, right? So, certain strands of modern feminism have drifted from advocating for equal rights to promoting a narrative that women are morally, intellectually, or socially superior to men. Okay, so this will alienate potential allies in men. Okay, so these men, they're good guys. They're good men and they want to support gender equality, but you're not selling it as gender equality. You're selling it as superiority. So that is when we see these shows where the husband is like the bumbling idiot, the dolt, right? And the wife is the one who keeps the whole household together, and the husband's like another child. See, when we keep putting out that narrative, good men are like, no, thank you. Like, I don't like that narrative. I don't want no parts of that narrative. Okay, so that's one of them. Overgeneralization and gender antagonism. So, in extreme rhetoric, all men are sometimes portrayed as potential oppressors or abusers. The use of the term toxic masculinity, okay? This can foster resentment and polarization rather than cooperation between the genders. And that is exactly where we are now. Women are lumping all men into the category of, dangerous and, aggressive and assaultive. And, all these men are horrible. All these men are, yeah, see, that's not good because we know that's not true. But again, that type of language pushes away good men. Men don't want anything to do with that. The third one is a neglect of men's issues. Modern feminist spaces often overlook problems disproportionately affecting men. Higher suicide rates, workplace deaths, homelessness, or family court bias in custody disputes. So there you are, gentlemen. That's what you all were waiting for, right? That there are different things related to men that we're no longer focusing on. But this is where I think men need to start to rally. Okay? So you all feel neglected. You all want to see this mandatory DNA test. You want to change family law. Get out there and make it happen. That's my advice to you. And like I said, if you do things the right way, you're going to have female allies. That's always been the case. Guess what? The National Organization of Women, there were 5 men that sat on that board. When NOW was created, there were men sitting on the board. So if these women have male allies, what makes you think, gentlemen, you wouldn't have female allies? You will. You will. But you got to get out there and make it happen. Okay? Political and ideological polarization. Feminism has become heavily tied to partisan politics, making it harder to unite people across the political spectrum on shared goals. This can turn a movement about equality into a culture war. Okay? Impact on oh, this is the big one. Impact on relationships and family dynamics. Critics claim certain feminist narratives discourage traditional family roles or even marriage, sometimes framing them as inherently oppressive. Since when is being a stay at home mother oppressive? Since when is being a wife or a husband oppressive? And I just read y'all the definition, right? Do I need to read the definition of oppression again? I was a stay at home wife and mother for 12 years. I've never been taken better care of. So that's the biggest one in my humble opinion is the erosion of the nuclear family. That's the one that I can't sit back and let happen on my watch. That's going to destroy us all. Okay? Yes. You got any questions or comments?
Yeah, I want to read this comment by Passport OG. What is woman's plan when they overtake men? Build infrastructure, seek happiness, feels good, doesn't building anything. What's the ultimate goal? To take over and then what?
I
Take over the
can't.
mining jobs, the rigging
Yeah,
jobs.
but they're not. But they're not. And we know that. We know that women don't want to do these jobs. They're not interested in climbing electric poles. They're not interested in, making the highway bigger. They're not interested in the oil rigging. They're not interested. Right now, I'm going to read you the statistic. We have 17.7% of active duty U.S. military are female. That's the highest it's ever been.
17%? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is still predominantly male. Most women don't want to do that. So I don't know what their plan is. I'm going to be the first to tell you I don't know because I don't want any parts of it. I don't want to do any of these infrastructure jobs. I don't want to collect the trash. I don't want to do any of that. And I think most women don't. So I don't know what the plan is. Yeah, they're and then they say things like we don't need men. Who's going to do all of this? And I've already talked to you all. There's a show and it is on I'm going to tell you what the name of it is. But it is a show about what would happen if all the men died. That was a really good show. It did not get picked up for a second season, but
Oh, you know that.
when I tell you the world went mad. The world went crazy. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That's why they didn't pick it up because the world went completely off its rocker. And feminism was like, nope, don't show that. Don't show what would really happen if there were no men on earth. Yeah, it these women lost their mind. It was horrible. But come to find out, there was one man and his pet monkey. They both survived this worldwide event that killed all of the men. And so the last episode was the women fighting over that one man. So I was like,
Ladies.
Right.
There's
I was
enough. There's
like,
enough of me to go around.
what the heck? That show did not get picked up, y'all. I wish it had, because they were on to something. Women running the world, women taking over. It don't end well. Things don't go well. And look, y'all, they didn't have no electric, they didn't have no water, they didn't know how to do nothing. And they were like, "What are we going to do about this? What are we going?" I was like, "Lord, this is real. This is real. They're showing the real depiction of what would happen to the world if men were not in it." So, yep.
Do you want to play a video now, or how do you
Yes,
want
we
to go?
can.
Okay. Did anyone will do, or did you have one in mind?
No, anyone will do at this point.
All right. So we got a couple of videos here to kind of prove our point here. Let's see. I have not watched. I think I watched maybe one or two of these, but let's see how it goes. Okay, come on.
It's coming.
At the expense of biological women.
I use myself as an example. This is about how big I was in junior high school and early high school. I used to be able to walk up to a V8 engine block, pick it up off the floor, and set it on a table. And if I was in powerlifting or weightlifting, that amount of, that advantage was just unbelievable. I've been on hormones for 15 years. Did it weaken me? Absolutely. Did my bone density really hasn't changed, my muscular hasn't changed. And this is not a binary question. There's a lot of nuances involved.
I just want to ask a question for what you were saying. Can you throw out some statistics?
I don't think you need to have so there's an abundance of research. There's even trans activists who agree with exactly what I'm saying. And your hormones can change, right? And even she just spoke to the fact that her bone density did not change in going on hormones and changing these things. And we can see it in sports as we're watching them. Leah Thomas is a great example.
So if you can't throw out the statistics, we're not doing enough of the work. And let's also be clear, there are some cisgender women who produce high levels of testosterone as well. And so we really have to unpack it from all different sides here.
Can you produce statistics about the bone density of biological men and how it changes upon being on hormones and whether or not it levels out to biological women?
I actually cannot, because when I would think of those statistics, I would think it was BS, to be quite honest with you, because the reality of it is we could talk about statistics and the research all day long, but it's about experience. We're going to be looking more at the experience, because again, when we look at cisgender women who produce high levels of testosterone and who have been kicked out of sports and been disqualified from teams based on something that they biologically cannot control, then what are we really talking about here?
Well, we're talking about, data and that is overwhelming. And we're talking about what is also we're capable of seeing with our human eyes. I think it's very clear that if you compare maybe you to the rest of us, there is going to be a strength difference. There's going to be a bone density difference.
But you're just saying that you don't know until we physically do something, and just perceiving and assuming just because I look a certain way, that's not fair. Me and her we could look completely different or whatever, but she may be stronger than me.
I agree, but
she have much more agility and vitality than I do. We don't know that until you actually do it.
I'm saying that it has been studied, it's been done.
And it's been done, we've seen it numerous times, time again.
But we're only going on assumption at this point. Because again,
it's not assumption when we see it. Maybe it's the news cycle that I watch, but I see it a lot. I see it quite often where they're showing trans women beating. I'm by far.
And you don't see women dominating in the men's sports, right? You don't see trans men going into men's sport and just completely dominating and wiping the field with them. This is what happens when you, in my opinion, twist God's design. And when you go against God's design, you create these problems that you wouldn't have if you weren't going against what God intended.
Okay, so now we're going to enter into the discussion transgenderism. Thank you, feminism. Thank you. Because now we have to enter into this conversation transgender women, right? We opened our doors to all of these people and all of this diversity because it's all about equality, right? That's what feminism, they're saying, hey, we want gender equality. Well, guess what? Now we have what, 50, 60 different genders? And a lot of them are transgender, non-binary. And so isn't that what feminism is? Gender equality. So now we've opened our doors to biological men who now identify as women who want to be in our sports, our professional sports, and who are wiping the floor with our biological female athletes, right? Who want to share our dressing rooms, who want to share our bathrooms. This is one of the biggest negatives of feminism. And that's why these folks are the reason why they couldn't define what a woman is. That's what feminism has got us. That now we're being questioned. Biological women are being questioned by trans women. That to me is one of the biggest negatives, is on top of the family issue. The family issue is the biggest. Right behind it is the transgender issue, where a biological man who identifies as a woman is telling me what the female experience is. So I know this is a hot button. I know this is a hot button, but this is a hill I'm willing to die on. I'd be darned if a biological man who identifies as a woman, number one, he has changed the term by calling me a cisgender woman. No, I'm just a woman. I'm just a woman. Number two, he wants me to identify him by female pronouns. Or for a lot of non binary folks, they want to identify as they, them. They want you to participate in the delusion. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I've been alive a long time. I've been critically thinking a long time. I'm educated, I'm well read, and I will not participate in the delusion. I'll call you by your name, but I am not going to, they say, why won't you use my preferred pronouns? Why won't you? Because you cannot force me to participate in your delusion. That's why. But thank you, feminism. This is where feminism, this is the fourth wave of feminism. Well, now we got to open the doors to transgender. We got to open the doors to all these different genders and all these different pronouns. And we got to get it right, or we could be fired from our jobs. We could be reported to our licensing offices, and now I've got to, instead of being a woman, I've got to be a cisgendered woman. I've got to be a pregnant people. I've got to be a breastfeeding. No, you can't even say breastfeeding. I'm sorry.
It's chest feeder.
Chest feeding people. I be damned. I be damned. Okay, that's not going to happen. And there's another video where she's like talking to a biological woman. Oh, you don't know my experience as a woman. And you don't know that. She's like, I know my experience, which is bleeding every month, having kids. No. Biology cannot be the determination of what a woman is. And we have feminism to thank for this. We have feminism to thank for this nonsense. That now we have to open the door to transgender women. And let's get this straight, y'all. There's some transgender women out here who think they better than real women. I've seen many an interview where they're like, yep, I think I'm better than a cisgender woman. I can't get pregnant. I don't have no period. That's what being a woman is. What? So yeah, we can thank feminism for that. So that's number 2 on my list, that transgender conversation. So Can't do it.
Let me jump in here for a second here. Let me talk about what I there's been some good conversations going on here in the chat, but I think a lot of this has to do with the lack of struggle. When we stop struggling within the world, right? We defeat all the lions, there's tigers, there's no bears, there's no
Yep.
pumas at your doorstep, right? We got a lot of food, we got a lot of comfort.
Mhm.
Now all of a sudden
Oh.
we need an enemy. We need an enemy,
Mhm.
right? So let me put this on the stage here. We'll read through this right here.
Yep,
This
it's true.
is what's called Universe 25, or the Mouse Utopia experiment, population
Mm,
density in the social experiment.
mm.
And I can't even read it here. It's too small, but let me try to
Okay.
pull it up over here. All right. So first is the orange sections here are what's really important. So this was an experiment that was done by John B. Calhoun in the 1960s. He did it from the 1960s and 1970s, just experimenting and to see what would happen when you gave, it says mice, but when you gave rats, Norwegian rats,
Mm.
enough food, enough shelter. They didn't have any predators. Everything was just a mouse utopia. Thus, the mouse utopia experiment, as it
Yep.
became to be known as. And so, what would happen in this particular experiment is they should have been able to house this section, right? Well, the first block right here, you can't see it on my on your screen, but first section here should have been 5,000 mice. They started off with something like 32 mice. Males, equal numbers of males and females, should have been able to grow to 5,000, had enough food, room, all that kind of stuff, and it just never got there. And in the
Wow.
earlier experiments, the population got down to 0.
Mm.
The I call them people. The mice brains became so sociologically unattuned to
Yep.
who they were. They couldn't mate anymore.
Yep.
They become so broken. Remember, there's no predators. They had enough
Mm.
food. There's
Mm.
no reason why this should have happened. So the consequences of the behavior, I'll just read some of this to you. The consequences of the behavioral pathology we observed were most apparent among the females. Many
Mm.
were unable to carry pregnancy to full term or to survive the delivery of their litters if they did. We're seeing that now, and,
Wow.
and
Wow.
one of the biggest critiques of this is, oh, you can't associate this with human beings. We're
Yeah.
human, but the
No.
women stopped producing. They stopped being mothers.
Yep.
It's just
And here we
but
are.
I keep calling them women. They're female mice. They're not women.
Right.
they're,
Yeah.
they're female mice. An even greater number, after successfully giving birth, fell short in their maternal functions. Among the
Mm.
males, the behavior disturbances range from sexual deviation to
Mm.
cannibalism, and the frenetic overactivity in the pathological withdrawal from individuals who would emerge to eat, drink, and move only about with other members of the communities were asleep. The
Mm.
social organization of the animals showed equal disruption. So, in other words, the men became just a bunch of monsters. They started
Wow.
the male mice became
Yep.
monsters. They started eating eating each other.
Mm.
They became pansexual. They would
Mm.
mate. They would hump on the alpha male. Listen. This is important. The alpha male mice would
Lord.
sometimes let these pansexual mice mount them.
Mm.
The,
Wow.
the female mice, at first, they became so masculine because of the other type of mice, the pansexual mice, and the more negative,
Mm.
toxic, for lack of a better word, mice would try to, in order to force the female mice to get into estrus to have babies,
Mhm.
they had to kill their pups, kill their little
Mm.
younglings. So that would
Mm.
force them into becoming fertile again.
Wow.
So they don't, obviously the alpha male mice couldn't fight all the other mice, so he just gave up.
Yep.
Now the mice, the other mice, the other male mice are coming in,
Mm.
trying to kill the pups. Now the women, the female mice, had to become masculine and fight them off.
Yep.
It was. So this is, I think,
Yeah.
that even
This is
though
what's
yes, we're
happening.
human beings, those same tendencies are going
Mhm.
on today. I want to read a
They
little bit more
are.
in this. In the
Yep.
experimenting with their behavioral sync, that means that their behavior just got worse and worse and worse and worse. They
Mm.
became so antisocial they couldn't communicate with each other. That developed, infant mortality ran as high as 96% among the most disoriented groups in the population. 96% mortality rate. Even in the absence of behavioral sync, in the second series of the 3 experiments, infant mortality reached 80% among the corresponding members of the experimental population. In other words, they ran an experiment a couple of times, and they said, okay, this is crazy. So they started making some differentiations between where the mouses slept at and what time they fed them at and things like that to see if they could change this, but nothing changed it. It went from 96% mortality rate down to 80%. That is still too high.
Right.
Three populations from the first series each began with 32 rats. Each population of the second series began with 56 rats. In all cases, the animals were just past weaning and were evenly divided between males and females. By the 12th month, all the populations had multiplied and each comprised of 80 adults. So they're making some moves there.
Okay.
So I'm going to get down to the next thing here. Let's go here. I'll try to put this in the chat so you guys can read this over. It's very fascinating. A territorial male, those are the alpha males, might tolerate other males in his dominion provided they respected his status. I'm the boss here. Don't mate with my women and you can sleep. Right. Such subordinate males inhabited the end pens in several of the experiments. Phlegmatic animals, they spent most of their time hidden in the burrow with the adult females, right? Those are males that are not doing anything. They're just going to hide with the women. They ain't fighting. They ain't trying to get no women. I'm just going to sleep next to you. This is the type of thing that goes on with, they think with mammals, where if you're not an alpha, you're just going to be kind of a beta and just sleep next to him and just cuddle up to him, right? So we don't want to be like that as men, right? And let's see, and their excursions to the floor lasted only as long as it took them to obtain food and water. Although they never attempted to engage in sexual activity with any of the females, they were likely on those rare occasions when they encountered the dominant male to make repeated attempts to mount him.
The Lord.
Generally, the dominant male tolerated these advances.
Lord.
So he just let him just go.
Right. Oh my God. Lord.
Let's see here. Females that lived in a densely populated middle pens became progressively less adept at building adequate nests and eventually stopped building nests at all. They stopped their maternal instinct. First, they stopped learning how to cook. I mean, they stopped learning how to make nests.
Right.
They don't know how to cook and clean anymore.
Nope. Yep.
Right? Normally, rats of both sexes build nests, but females do so most vigorously around the time of parturition or when they're about to give birth. It is an undertaking that involves repeated periods of sustained activity, searching out appropriate materials in our experiment, strips of paper supplied in abundance. So they're looking for stuff to build nests with. Transported them bit by bit to their nests and then arranging them to form cup-like depressions, frequently sheltered by a hood. In a crowded middle pen, however, the ability of females to persist in this biologically essential activity became markedly impaired. The first sign of disruption was a failure to build the nest to normal specifications, and then they stopped learning how to build them at all. They stopped learning how to cook and clean at all.
Yep, that's where we at.
In the extreme disruption of the behavior during the later months of the population's history, they would build no nests at all, but would bear their litters on the sawdust in the burrow. Wherever they just dropped them, they just dropped the babies. Just whatever. The middle pen females similarly lost the ability to transport their litters from one place to another. They would remove only part of the litters and would scatter them by depositing the infants in different places or simply dropping them on the floor of the pen. They just stopped caring about their babies at all.
Ooh, yeah, we seeing that.
So here's this is going to be a little bit long, but I think this is important to see what is going on here. The aggressive dominant animals were the most normal males in our population. They seldom bothered either females or juveniles. Right? Those are the aggressive dominant males. They didn't mess with the other females. They didn't mess with the kids. Right? Yet even they exhibited occasional signs of pathology, going berserk, attacking females, juveniles, and less active males, and showing particular predilection, which rats do normally display for biting other animals on the tail. Below the dominant males on both the status scale and their level of activity were the homosexuals.
Mm.
A group perhaps better described as pansexuals. These
Mm.
animals apparently could not discriminate between appropriate and inappropriate sex partners.
Mm.
They made sexual advances to males, juveniles, females that were not in estrus. The
Mm.
males, including the dominant as well as the other of the pansexuals' own group, usually accepted their attentions. They accepted it. What is
Mm.
going on in this society? The general level of activity of these animals was only moderate. They were frequently attacked by their dominant
Mm.
associates, but they were rarely contended for their status.
Mm.
Two other types of males emerged, both of which resigned entirely from struggle or dominance. They were, however, at exactly opposite poles as far as their levels of activity were concerned. The first were completely passive and moved through the community like zombies, basically.
Mm.
To me, that sounds like kind of like guys who just gave up.
Yeah.
They just
Yep.
gave up. They just go out to eat and they just
And
go
come
back
back.
in. They're not
Yep.
they're not going to fight with the alpha male.
Nope.
They just going to give up.
Mm-hmm.
They ignored all the other rats of both sexes, and all the other rats ignored them. Even when the females were in estrus, these passive males made no advances to them, and or only very rarely did other males attack them or approach them for any kind of play. To the casual observer, the passive males would have appeared to be the healthiest and most attractive members of the community. They're not getting in fights, their fur's growing,
Mm.
everything's all good, they're eating good, right?
Mm.
They were fat and sleek, and their fur showed no breaks and bare spots left by fighting with other males usually engaged, but their social disorientation was nearly complete.
Mm.
Perhaps the strangest of all types that emerged among the males was the group I called the probers. These animals, which always lived in the middle pens, took no part in all the status struggle. Nevertheless, they were the most active of all the males in experimental populations, and they persisted in their activity in spite of the attacks by the dominant males. In
Mm.
addition to being hyperactive, the probers were hypersexual and homosexual.
Mm.
And in time, many of them became cannibalistic. They were
Ooh.
always on alert for estrus females. If none were in their own pens, they would lie in wait for long periods at the top of the ramp that gave the brood pens and peered to look down from. They were always turned and fled as soon as the territorial rat caught any sight of them. Even if they did not manage to escape unhurt, they would soon return to the vantage point. The probers conducted their pursuit on estrus females in an abnormal manner. Mating among rats usually involves a distinct courtship ritual. In the first phase of this ritual, the male pursues the female. She thereupon retires into the burrow, and the male lies quickly in wait outside, occasionally poking his head into the burrow for a long moment, but never entering it.
Hmm.
In the wild forms of the Norway rat, this phase usually involves a courtship dance on the mound of the mouth of the burrow. The female at last emerges. I lost my place here. The female last emerges from the burrow and accepts the male's advances. Even in the disordered community of the middle pens, this pattern was observed by all the males who engage in normal heterosexual behaviors. But the probers would not tolerate even a short period of waiting, right? They became so crazy that that whatever social norms they had, they just like, F this, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do.
Yep.
As soon as the female retired to her burrow, a prober would follow her inside. On these expeditions, the probers often found dead young in the nests. As a result, they tended to be cannibalistic in the later months of the population history. So that ends off with saying, we got to take a look at how this is affecting humans. And this experiment was done from the 1960s and the 1970s. In all the experiments, there was some form of this nonsense going on, where you had these prober rats who were just going there, kill little babies, just to make the woman, make the female mice go into estrus.
Right.
The males got all crazy. The females got all crazy. So this is what they think is going on, and this is what some people think is dealing with the transgender issue. We have no lions, we have no tigers, we have nothing else going on. We got plenty of food, particularly here in the West. So we got to create some type of enemy. So I just want to say that.
But that we can thank feminism for the transgender issues. And again, these transgender people, especially trans women, their modus operandi is to put women out of business. They think they are the better 2.0 version of a woman. So that to me is just off the chain that you would welcome something like this, and now this person is attempting to replace you. That doesn't make sense. It does not make sense why this group would do this. But yes, they're taking over women's sports, and yet you don't see trans men doing this. That was the last point she made. We don't see trans men dominating in male sports. No, you do not. No, you do not. So how do you explain that? But yes, there are trans women who to me is like, that's how I know you're a biological male, because this is typical. Like, this is typical that you would want to come in, take over. That's typical in my mind. Like, okay, yeah, you're definitely a biological male because you're trying to come in, take over, say, hey, we're better than you. Like, really? But yeah, I think that's exactly where we're going to find ourselves in 10, 20 years. Not in a good place at all.
Let's
Not
do
at
another
all.
video here. Y'all hit the like button. Thank you to it, Miss Anita, for coming on here tonight. I don't know what this next one is. Are these all trans stuff? Are these all videos all
No,
trans
no,
stuff?
they're
Oh,
not
okay.
all. And you've got a super sticker when you get a chance.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, I'll do it right after.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on my computer tonight.
Suffer.
Every single.
I think that was well said.
Yep. Yep. But that is what we're seeing. That was in 2022. It's 2025. And you have the T app. You have the T app coming on the scene, which is nothing but a platform for women to gossip about men and talk about how bad they are and how awful they are. And, oh, these men did me like this and did me like that, taking zero accountability for choosing these men. That's the part. And I'm always telling my male clients, if the woman you're dealing with is letting you know about all the trash men she's dated, she's the common denominator. She can't choose a good man. That's what she's telling you.
Yeah, that's an interesting point there. Let me say thank you to Adrena F for the $50 super sticker.
All
Thank you so much. I
right.
truly appreciate that. Thank you. Yes,
Mhm.
and Rhonda says I have lunch money for the week. I don't know about for the week.
Yeah.
But
Inflation.
yeah, inflation.
Like,
But I do
no,
thank you for that.
okay.
Appreciate that. Appreciate
Yeah.
that. So I mean, what do you say when you talk to ladies and and they're saying this? Obviously, they're saying this stuff to you. You've got to run into certain feminists who are saying this stuff. What is it? What is your response to them?
I'm going to always push back that, they are painting all men out to be these oppressors. And I think we've already determined that women were not oppressed. That's not what happened. Um, but they are painting all men out to be these oppressors. As we've stated, as you stated many times on your own show, that women tend to date, 10% of men, the same 10% of men, and yet they get bad results and they say all men are awful, all men are horrible, and I'm like, well, why don't you try dating the other 90% of men? Because I can assure you there are plenty of good men out there. They're being overlooked. They're completely being overlooked, and those men are not like chasing you down in the street because you've told them to get lost, but they still exist. Those men are still out there. They still exist. So yeah, most feminists don't want to
Is there a
debate
way to
me
get them
because
to real?
yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, they just don't want to debate me because I'm gonna stay cool, calm, and collected. I'm gonna state facts, logical data, and they don't like that. Um, but yeah, I'm always encouraging women, to get outside of their normal type and stop relying so heavily on preferences and focus more on a man's character and other qualities. That's it.
So that's what I was going to ask you is how do you get them to do that when they are so, and you and I talked about this. There is this idea now because ladies are in this particular place, leveled up financially, etc., that they don't think that that they now think that they can go after the pretty boy. And
Right.
this boy can often be toxic. He cannot be a good
Hmm.
dad. He can have all these negative traits, as you
Yep.
just mentioned, right? She's making all these bad decisions, and it's passing over the guy who would make a great mate. Is there a
Hmm.
way to really rectify that? Is there a way to fix that?
I mean, we have to want to do it, and I do think that women who experience the negative consequences, like the natural cycle is she's going to get beat up. She's going to get worn down and beat down, and she will come to this realization. I just hope it's not when she's 40 years old and has 3 children. So I try to catch women young. I do. I try to catch them young, and I say, look, you're dating all the wrong types of guys. And I really need you to be open to rewiring your brain to wanting someone with high moral character, to not rely so heavily on your preferences, right? To have healthy, high standards. I try to catch them young. I do.
Mhm. So there's a couple of videos that I was watching. Well, here's a video that I was watching. The one on the right here has
Mhm.
feminism destroyed the West. It
Mm,
got a little lowbrow for me. I was thinking about
okay.
reviewing it, but it got a little lowbrow. But the one in the
Yeah.
middle, the good guy is corny. I may do it. I may react to that this week. I haven't
Okay.
watched it yet, but you can see 3 black women on there, and they're going to talk about the good guy being corny. And so
But like you,
I
but
may
like
do
you,
that.
but like you said, these same women will date a corny white guy. What's the difference?
Oh man.
What's the difference?
Well, you tell me. BGS,
There,
I don't know if
there
he's still
is
in the
none.
chat here.
There is
BGS,
no
I don't know.
difference.
He's still in the chat. I don't know if he's still in the chat here, but BGS
Okay.
did a great video on his channel talking about that exact thing that the
Yeah.
good
What's the difference?
that the white guy that they date can be broke sometimes,
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
be broke, and but they will overlook a decent black dude for the white guy. I mean, what is up with that?
I mean, but that is a part of the racial programming, right? It's the halo effect. We've all been programmed to believe that white is right. So even if white is corny, even if white is not attractive, we think white is right. So some of that is just that racial programming that all of us have received. I don't believe that. I don't believe that white women, white men, I don't believe that at all. But a lot of us still fall prey to that. White is right. White is
Mm,
right. White is somehow better and nicer and whatever, richer or whatever. We still have that programming. We need to fight that programming that white is right. I'll take a tech guy any day. And I don't understand it either, but like I said, they're falling prey to that racial programming that says white is right. So
all right.
that's all that is.
Very good. All right, we're gonna end it off there. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much to Adrena for the $50 super sticker. I really, really
Hmm.
appreciate that. Anita, tell us how we get out of this mess. I mean, what is your projection for the next 5 to 10 years? What does the world look like? What does the United States look like? What does the West look like? Baby rates, birth. What's your projections?
Okay, so here's how I want to wrap this up. Um, I did some studies on women's happiness and where those rates are today. And what's so interesting is, even with all of these positives of feminism, according to the feminist narrative, women are more unhappy than ever. So, according to the most recent analysis, depression is the second most debilitating disease for women. Heart disease is the first. While for men, depression clocks in at number 10. As a result, women choose to medicate themselves with anti-anxiety and anti-depression medication twice as much as men do. Never one to miss an opportunity, the big pharma companies nurse this need by targeting 2/3 of all advertising of these medications explicitly toward women. So you would think that because of all of these freedoms, all of this fun, all of this sexual liberation, that women would be happier, but they are not. Right now, it's trending down. Women's happiness is trending down. So there was a recent study done about has feminism made women less happy? And it talked about how there's higher levels of the depression, the anxiety, um, that feminism has not had the positive effect on women that they had hoped. And so men, for the most part, are still reporting happiness more than women are. And how can you explain that? But there was a study, let me see if I can find it, um, where the authors, I think it's a husband and a wife, and they talk about how right now, yes, most women are actually less happy now than they were in the 70s. So in the 70s, so even though they have more education, even though they're making more money, um, they're not as happy. Okay, so yeah, we need to. So Betsy Stevenson and Justin Wolfers, they are Wharton professors, and they did a complete analysis on this study, and they found that unfortunately, women's happiness is actually going down. And again, we see this with the rate of women's videos crying in their car, I'm married to the perfect man and I'm miserable, or talking to the camera, I just took a job in a whole nother state and I'm leaving my husband and my family. Like,
What's
what?
these are the rats who are dropping their babies.
Huh? Yeah, but yet feminism has freed you, and these are the type of things that you're doing. So no, this is a horribly flawed experiment that we have all been living with for years. There are, in my humble opinion, there are more negatives than there are positives. And as time goes on, we're going to see that more and more. That the few positives that we gained through gender equality, they are being outweighed by the negatives. So, yes, women are not as happy. And I notice it. I notice it in my practice. Women who seem to have it all, because isn't that what you said you wanted? But they are
Mm,
miserable. They are miserable. They're burnt out. They're overwhelmed. A lot of these women have struggles with fertility because they've pushed aside their female nature. And it's almost like their uterus said, "Oh, okay, well, you don't need me anymore." Their ovaries said, "Oh, you don't cherish me anymore. You don't need me anymore." And it shut down. It shut their bodies down. This is why I tell women, you have to be the girl. You have to embrace your femininity. You have to embrace the power that is being female, biologically female. Because if not, you will lose a lot of your superpowers. The things that God designed you to do, you will lose them. You will lose them. And in my humble opinion, women don't make very good men. They choose the worst part of men's character. That's what they say. Oh, I sleep around like a man. I can leave my kids like a man. Men been doing it. So you choose the worst part of a man, and that's the part that you emulate.
mm.
Like, women don't even make good men. They won't work the hard jobs. They won't stay in situations that are like, what? They're not loyal. Can you pick the best parts of a man and emulate that? Because it seemed to me that all y'all are doing is picking the worst parts of men, and that's what you're emulating. That don't make no sense to me. You're not logical, you're not rational. Like there are a lot of benefits to being a man, but you're not choosing those parts, you're choosing the worst parts. So, yeah, I think this experiment has gone very wrong. And all of us know it. But guess what? There are intellectuals that will die on this hill. They have been proven to be flawed, and they are going down with the ship.
Wow. Okay. Give the people your where they can find you at. Yeah, give the people where you can find you at, your social media handles and all that.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dr. L, for having me. It is Better Love Movement. That's how you can find me everywhere. So my website is betterlovemovement.com. My YouTube channel is Better Love Movement. On Instagram and Facebook, it is Better Love Movement.
And thank you so much for the presentation tonight. I hope
Yep.
that it really rings that, I don't know, wakes people up, gets people
Yeah.
thinking, if we don't stop this madness, and nobody's saying you have to go back to the Stone Ages,
No.
but
No.
we got to stop this superiority thing. I think is really killing us. And me coming from the male perspective, right? If boys don't feel as if they have anything to do, if there's no hope for them, if they go to schools and the educational system is geared towards women and all the other things that are going on, and they grow up in a society where they think that there is no reward and that being masculine is negative
Yep.
in and of itself, they're not going to try. And
Yep.
what do you do with the homeless population? What does that do to men's mental health? What does it do to the self-deletion rates? My own field, criminal justice, you end up arresting a lot of boys because, just like we saw in the rat study, if you don't have some type of social structure that is accepted, these people, these boys will join gangs and they'll do other negative things, and
Yep.
that will be an affront to society. So this is why I want to address this and all that. So thank you so much for coming on to the show. You're
Thank you.
welcome anytime.
Yes.
You're welcome anytime. Thank you again to Adrena and to everyone else who's been watching. Thank you guys so much for joining in the chat. We'll
Yep.
see you guys again. Take care. Much love and peace.